The weather was perfect that day, marking the celebration of the transfer ceremony to the second school in the city of Lijiang. An animated group of students gathered in a spacious courtyard, surrounded by castle-like structures, giving the place a majestic atmosphere that stood out against the vegetation. In front of the assembled students, the director of the institution, Luo Hend, a bald man, imparted words of wisdom to everyone present. You have a single opportunity to shape your future destiny, so ponder carefully about your choices. He advised against being solely swayed by combat-related professions, emphasizing that careers in mechanics and summoning required considerable resources, something challenging for ordinary people. The impact of the speech left everyone present extremely excited and full of expectations. Some aspired to become berserkers, eager to awaken as true hunting machines, while others aimed to pursue the path of pharmacy. Among those present, a young woman expressed her thoughts, eliciting a reaction from a blue-haired boy who mockingly questioned, "Is it true that you're afraid of dying?" Years ago, a revolutionary virtual reality game called Eteral was released. The unique experience and thrilling battles provided by the game led people to become increasingly addicted. However, one day, an intense green light broke through the skies, enveloping the entire city. The landscape was drastically transformed, with skeletal monsters flying through the still-tinted skies. The Earth's surface expanded enormously, giving rise to numerous dungeons and bringing with it a variety of monsters and alien races. Chaos descended upon the city, with the opening of multiple portals generating fear and widespread panic. Screams echoed as desperate people fled in all directions, trying to distance themselves as much as possible. At that moment, the game intertwined with reality, allowing all humans to enhance their powers, exchanging and improving their classes to fight against the emerging monsters. It had been a year since our protagonist, Zhou Yi, found himself immersed in this new world. A common young man, his arms wrapped in bandages, carrying a serious expression. Before delving into the current events in Zhou Yi's life, it is crucial to revisit a significant moment in his history, the death of his mother. This was a period that preceded the adoption of his new identity. Soon after, his sister, Zhou Yun, succumbed to a mysterious illness for which conventional doctors had no solution. Desperate, Zhou Yi sold his house and sought help even among relatives, resorting to low-level priests in an attempt to keep his sister alive. However, the truth remained cruel, as the origin of the disease remained a mystery, and his sister's life hung by a thread, able to die at any moment. With no alternatives in the face of escalating medical costs and his already insufficient part-time income, Zhou Yi was determined to switch his class to combat. His goal was to clear dungeons to earn money and take his sister to more advanced treatments by the priests. In the midst of this determination, a level 24 mage indicated a circle, announcing that the transfer ceremony was about to begin. As the students' identifications were mentioned, they headed towards the magic circle. The mage raised his staff towards the circle, and a purple light began to form, completely filling the space. The activation of the circle caused an intense wave of energy that made many students shield themselves, placing their arms in front of their faces. It was just a brief demonstration of the power of a level 24 mage. The surprising revelation for Zhou Yi was that the mage class responsible for conducting transfer ceremonies could earn around 6 figures in money. Shortly after, Professor Li Xiangyang from Class 5, holding a stack of papers, announced the first name, Zheng Cheng. He was a red-haired boy standing next to Zhou Yi, who promptly raised his hands, responding, "Present." Moving to the center of the circle where the purple light emanated, a strong wind spun around him, capturing everyone's attention. Although there were thousands of classes available for exchange, in this ceremony, only 3 professions most suitable for each individual would be revealed. In this world where monsters were abundant and evil creatures wreaked havoc, combat professions were the most useful and respected, in contrast to support classes, whose status was considered lower. Zheng Cheng expressed his frustration as he prostrated himself on the ground, disappointed that only classes like Pharmacist, Enchanter, and Decomposer had appeared for him. Clenching his fists on the ground, he exclaimed, "My God, how unlucky!" According to the probabilities of previous years, some people still held hope of eventually switching to a combat class. Among the 3 options that appeared for him, Enchanter was considered the most promising. After several names were called, finally, number 31 was announced, Zhou Yu. He took a deep breath, his eyes reflecting not fear, but confidence. With determination, our protagonist headed towards the circle, remembering that academic performance and attributes were not decisive factors at this moment where equality prevailed. At this crucial moment in our protagonist's life, a man questioned Professor Lao Li about how many students from his class would move to the combat class. The answer was that only 16 would have this opportunity. The man then began to boast, mentioning that in his class there were 21 fighters and all indicators were according to plan, provoking Lao Li's anger. However, something caught everyone's attention. Turning to the center of the circle, the man asked, "What's happening with the class monitor? Is he frozen?" The wind hovering over the circle began to envelop our protagonist, who remained with closed eyes. The breeze became more intense, even causing his shirt to sway rhythmically. Opening only one eye, Jo-Yu noticed that his necklace was shining more brightly and had moved away from his body. Gradually, the glow became more vibrant, taking on a golden hue. From inside the necklace, a tangible light radiated through the surroundings, leaving Jo-Yu surprised and questioning what it could be. The light emanated the energy of a system being created. Once the activation was complete, various notification screens appeared in front of Jo-Yu, informing him that the upload was complete. The most robust professional auxiliary system had been activated, along with a S+ level talent and the protection of the divine angel. Jo-Yu rubbed his eyes, unable to believe what he was witnessing. A system? He questioned himself, but upon opening his eyes, notifications requesting acceptance of the divine protection still remained before him. Is this a real system? He wondered to himself. He raised his hand and touched the screen, recalling that he had acquired this necklace at a street stall in his previous life and had always kept it with him. In the past, he had tried to activate it several times without success, leading him to believe that maybe it was just a kind of treasure. Incredulously, he realized that this was indeed a miracle. The system screen indicated a divine angel protection of S+ ranking, and his affinity with light had increased significantly. He concluded that the effects of all abilities, divinities, and light were doubled. In this world, talents range from F to S level, and the higher the level, the better the amplification effect. Remembering this, Jo-Yu smiled with hope, as the 3 optional classes that appeared in the ceremony were directly related to talents. While our protagonist marveled at his new gift, exploring the screens of a newly created system for him, others watched, wondering why he remained standing there. Some even questioned if he didn't want to switch classes, although that seemed unlikely, as something like this had never happened before. Suddenly, before everyone, a golden light cut vertically through the sky, completely altering the atmosphere of the place. The sky, once blue and full of clouds, took on a rosy hue with some golden rain-laden clouds emerging above all, leaving everyone stunned. The director, perplexed, asked the mage beside him, "Is this a class transfer phenomenon?" To which he replied, "No, it's a vision of talent awakening." Descending from above was a divine being with 3 pairs of wings. As it descended, some feathers detached, falling all around, and the entity approached Jo-Yu, who remained enchanted by the beauty of this creature. His fixed eyes sparkled in the face of such perfection, while his necklace responded to the brilliance of the moment. The divine being had long hair that reached the waist, a beautiful face, and, instead of eyes, a golden blindfold. Everyone was amazed by what was happening. It was indeed a divine entity, graceful and imposing, hovering over Jo-Yu, saying, "The light is your belief and the source of your strength." She extended her hands, smiled, and continued to say, "With the support of faith, the sacred light will always protect you and burn away all evil." As she nearly touched Jo-Yu, our protagonist's body lifted, raising his head still in awe, responding to the touch. The angel began to transform into light, dematerializing towards the touch on Jo-Yu's face. Finally, only the outline of her wings remained marked on his forehead, which at this moment remained with closed eyes. Upon opening them, a strong energy penetrated his body, his eyes gleamed in shades of green and gold, and a 4-pointed star symbol appeared in the center of his forehead and eyes. The sweet voice of the angel still echoed, saying, "Yet, I will always be by your side." Next, the light enveloping our protagonist seemed to burn through his entire body. His hair stood on end, his eyes widened with brilliance, and he let out a silent scream, as if undergoing a shock. Suddenly, that moment ceased, giving way to the appearance of 3 figures hovering over him. The people who were there, watching, were incredibly astonished, in shock. One of the students approached his teacher, questioning if gaining new talents during the class transfer ceremony was a matter of luck. Another, hands on his head, wondered if the divine angel's protection vow would be a new talent acquired by Jo-Yu. However, the prevailing question was, what kind of classes are these? Professor Lee, perplexed, his eyes fixed and unmoving, couldn't believe it. He only uttered the words, "This is," as he was surrounded by questions. The reality was that these 3 figures in front of Jo-Yu represented the hidden class. Before him were the options of his choice, the Light Mage, the Sacred Priest, and the Paladin. The Light Mage is a purely offensive class, capable of generating explosions but with limited abilities for life-saving, making it vulnerable in a world dominated by extraterrestrials. The priest, on the other hand, possesses many healing abilities and even the incredible power of resurrection. However, his own combat ability is practically non-existent, making him dependent on others, which might be unsuitable for Zhou Yi. The Paladin, in turn, is a balanced tank, capable of both resisting and attacking. For Zhou Yi, none of the options seemed perfect, but the gift of the light affinity was present. Considering it to be the most suitable choice, Zhou Yi placed his hand on his selection, becoming a Paladin. The figure of the Paladin rises, revealing itself as a massive knight in armor, holding on his shoulders a weapon resembling a judge's hammer. Before him, Zhou Yi seems like a mere ant. The knight begins to move, narrating the fundamental pillars: humility, honor, heroism, compassion, responsibility, and finally, he slams his weapon on the ground as the voice resonates, "Do what is right." Looking down at the small figure below, the Paladin concludes by saying, "A perpetual quest for justice and righteousness. That is to be a Paladin." Zhou Yi meets the gaze with a serious expression, showing that he takes seriously all the commitments mentioned by the imposing knight. Facing each other, the Paladin shines, leaving traces of light passing between him and Zhou Yi in perfect harmony. This same light envelops the body of our protagonist, his legs. Suddenly, 6 beams of light penetrate his back, unifying the figure of an angel with its imposing wings and the Paladin covered in golden armor. The system notification congratulates our protagonist on the profession change, now transformed into a Paladin. Beneath the helmet, Zhou Yi's face expresses conviction that he has just made the right choice. Upon concluding his ceremony, Zhou Yi was warmly welcomed by his classmates and schoolmates. Everyone wanted to be part of the same team, claiming that together they would achieve a high score. Some declared themselves wizards and asked to be called upon when Zhou Yi needed help. However, one person pushed everyone around, saying, "Don't cluster together, step back." Changing his mood completely, this man, with shining eyes, approached our protagonist, praising him and emphasizing how amazing everything had been. He asked Zhou Yi to rest for today, as he would need to report to the director's office the next day. Despite the comical scene, Laoban's actions frightened Zhou Yi, who tried to discreetly distance himself. After a while, our protagonist was already relaxed in his room, analyzing the distribution points that were still available for allocation. Frantically, he began to fill in the points, prioritizing the increase in strength followed by physical fitness. Attacks with enough lethality to defeat monsters would be much more efficient. After completion, he had 26 points in strength, 20 in constitution, 18 in speed, and 16 in intelligence. Within moments, Zhou Yi could feel the energy bubbling through his entire body, a result of the changes in his attributes. As the energy enveloped his body, the sensation he experienced was refreshing. As a result of activating the points, the system also notified him of his first mission as a Paladin, consisting of a daily routine of one-on-one duels. Zhou Yi found it all interesting, and the rewards were great, so there was no reason not to accept. He clicked the confirmation button, and suddenly, a light began to envelop his finger. In an instant, he was engulfed in this light. The system was pairing with a random field compatible with his level. Once completed, a message appeared. "Kill the E-rank monster Gulabi." Zhou Yi was surprised by the rest of the message. "Please take this test seriously. If you die in the test, you will die in reality." Zhou Yi was already in a kind of mine, with no living soul around. He remembered from books that the Gulabi monsters lived in mines and, although not carnivorous, were still bloodthirsty and violent when they spotted humans. As he searched for these monsters, one of them appeared behind him, attempting to catch him by surprise. However, quickly, our protagonist noticed the failed attempt, emphasizing how they were dumb. They were monsters with impactful attacks, sharp claws capable of easily cutting through minerals. In the same instant, Zhou Yi skillfully dodged this onslaught. Excited to be facing a monster for the first time, he wanted to test himself, to see if he could defeat them without using any skills. Zhou Yi prepared for a leap and, propelling himself, landed a bit farther from the creature. Realizing that his body had become more flexible and his jumping ability had also improved, a result of the increased points in the 4 attributes. He got up, turned to face the Gulabi that was already charging at him. The monster tried to hit him again with its sharp claws. However, Zhou Yi managed to dodge, and not just once, but every time he achieved the same result. Our confident protagonist boasted as the Gulabis were slow, and with that, he could see the entire trajectory of their movements. However, what he did not expect was for the creature to use its sharp tail to come at him and hit him head-on. He ended up being thrown against the wall. Zhou Yi, surprised to see a huge hole in his stomach and the vast amount of blood gushing from it, froze, unable to take any action. Automatically, the golden energy began to emanate from him, and he, weakened, had to drastically support his hand and knee on the ground, still dripping a lot of blood. Seeing our protagonist fallen and weakened, the Gulabis now appeared as an imposing creature. Zhou Yi, putting his hand on the wound, saw a golden light emanate from it and said to himself, monsters don't care how much you trained in school. He applied a level 1 self-healing, which would take about 30 seconds, restoring a certain amount of health to 2 teammates within a certain distance. Zhou Yi stood up, his wound healed, affirming that he could not be underestimated by a low-level monster. The Gulabis focused, threatening him again with its claws, but this time, it was our protagonist's turn to counter-attack. Zhou Yi positioned his 2 hands in front, and a light appeared. In a cross shape, it was directed towards the creature as his hands turned backward. Everything lit up, and this ability was called Pure White Blade, Level 1, Rank C. After the strike, the attack would inflict magical damage. He propelled himself again, activating the Level 4 Tiger attack. It involved grabbing an enemy and running forward for a certain distance before throwing them. While running, he could deal damage with multiple attacks along the way. His charge was so violent that several debris fell in his wake. He advanced toward the creature and pushed it against the wall, causing damage. Zhou Yi clenched his fists, which were already surrounded by golden light, and said, "Let's go, my dear." From the body of the Gulabi, various lights emanated while it was still pressed against the wall. These lights were traces of the multiple punches delivered by our protagonist. The attacks persisted until a notification appeared, informing that the Gulabi monster had been defeated, and the test was complete with a rating of A. He could choose 3 rewards among 10 additional attribute points, acquiring Paladin abilities, or obtaining random Paladin equipment. Our protagonist stopped for a moment, analyzing all his possibilities. Attribute points and abilities are the source of a professional's power, but he was not in a hurry to improve his skills as he could still obtain these points for free. A good weapon would be of great help for the future, but the system would provide weapons as rewards. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to afford them. He opted for attribute points and random equipment, winning a simple one-handed sword. Next, the entire test area dematerialized in front of him, and in no time, he was back in his room, while a vibrant sound was heard coming from his pocket. He picked up his phone, saw that it was already 5 in the evening, and realized he needed to go to the hospital. There, a girl named Jo Yun watches the news on television, where the reporter informs, "The miracle of the appearance of a holy angel occurred in a student's class acquisition. According to sources, the student awakened a talent before acquisition and joined the secret class, the Paladin. This was the first time a secret class had appeared in the city in 50 years. As Yoon listens to the news, her heartbeat is monitored. She is the sister of our protagonist. At this moment, the head nurse enters her room, turns off the television with an annoyed expression. Irritated, she shows Yoon a paper containing the medical expenses and shouts while hitting the remote on the paper. "It's time to pay the bills, it's 10,000! 10,000! The girl is frightened. "Why did it increase so much? Wasn't it 5,000? Is this some mistake?" Yoon is worried about this increase because her brother works 3 jobs to earn exactly 5,000 yuan. Where would he get the rest of the money? The nurse didn't want to hear it. Crossing her arms, she threw in Yoon's face all the care she had during this period, the amount of medicine that was necessary, and even the number of times she had worsened. Her stress increased more and more, leaving the atmosphere heavy with her words. "Such a young girl, if you think something is wrong, you go and figure it out. This is a hospital." Yun stammered, trying to explain that she might have misunderstood everything, but she kept talking without realizing that behind her, there was a hand approaching. Nevertheless, she did not stop saying, "If you don't have money, don't get a rich person's disease. Just accept your fate." But she interrupted herself, feeling the man's hand on her shoulder and his voice calling her in a gentler yet threatening tone. When the nurse turned around, she saw 2 men in suits. One of them, with a gentle smile, mentioned that he had overheard the conversation and highlighted the insults that had been generated. Then, he threatened, "I wonder if the nurse will continue to act this way after a visit to the director's office." The nurse scowled, judging the first impression she had of the men, and they certainly didn't seem like good-natured people, so she decided to leave. However, reaching the door, she asserted sternly, You must pay the medical bills today. Yoon was startled because she didn't know either of the men in front of her and asked who they were, wondering if they had come to collect a debt. Gently, the man extended his hand, showing his business card, and introduced himself as a friend of her brother.